Guys. What's up, throttlers? Aristotle Full Throttle here, and I am getting over a cold, so my voice will not be optimal, like my stream resolution. It's not optimal, but that's okay. We're all here, and we're going to talk about Star Wars. We've got 2 viewers right now. This is going to be awesome. Just wait for it. I'm going to try to. I've never lost my voice. I used to think that losing your voice was bogus, like Bill and Ted. But it turns out you can lose your voice. Because I'm the kind of person that it's not real unless it happens to me first, which is something we can all learn from. I'm no longer that kind of person. I actually try to put myself in other people's shoes, and I encourage that you all do that as well. And I actually did that last week when I saw, actually this week, when I saw Star Wars again, The Rise of Skywalker. They were friends of mine who heard me lament that I did not like The Rise of Skywalker, The Rise of Star Warser. I saw it the first time. I don't know what kind of state of mind I was in, but I was not thoroughly impressed. I was not happy. I was actually very disappointed. It was kind of a joyless experience. It may have had something to do with how I was feeling at the time. So they encouraged that I go see the movie again. Star Wars. Hey, K-Ferg, what's up, man? Cheers to you. I'm going to give you a cheers in my ember mug. It keeps my coffee hot. It's still hot. Look at this. You can see the steam. I don't know if you can see. I just got a regular old webcam here. K-Ferg wears size 13. Size 13 is good. I like the number 13. Actually, my birthday is January 13th, which is Monday. And I am open to suggestions as to what I should do for my birthday. What do you think I should do for my birthday, K-Ferg? I almost forgot it was my birthday. I didn't know it was my birthday until I saw on the calendar. I saw something pop up and I was like, oh, I have something scheduled for Monday all day. And it turns out it was my birthday. Yeah, I'm going to get to my thoughts on Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker. My friend was like, hey, let's go see Star Wars, Rise of Skywalker. I know you saw it, and I know you like Star Wars. Why don't you come see it with me? Because I haven't seen it yet. And I was like, no, I don't want to see it again. And I was swearing it off. I didn't want to see it again. I thought it just kind of was a J.J. Abrams, whatever, just super fast-paced, didn't really keep my interest in a lot of ways because certain things happened and then they didn't let those things breathe, like, spoiler alert, Chewbacca dies, but he doesn't. So we're like, did he die? No, he didn't? Okay, fine. Because the audience would just be like, Chewbacca can't go out like that. It was obvious that he didn't die because it was one of those classic movie tricks where he dies off screen. A lot of people in the movie don't die. Like the Emperor didn't die. Ben didn't die. The Sandworm didn't die. Chewbacca didn't die. C-3PO didn't lose his memory. But my friend said, hey, let's go see it. And I said, no. And then the next day they said, hey, let's go see it. And I said, no. And then my other friends who were texting me on a text thread, they were like, you're not going to see it again? What's wrong with you? I've seen it 4 times. And I'm like, no, I'm never going to see Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker again. Maybe when it comes on Disney Plus, I'll go see it. And they were very disappointed in me. They were like, what's wrong with you? Why don't you just go see it again? Particularly one of my friends who wants me to get him a t-shirt at the Chinese theater because he's gotten a t-shirt every year there, so I should probably walk 2 miles that way and go get him one. Rise of the Capricorns. So K-Ferg, you took someone to see Star Wars for your birthday. That's pretty good. I'm sure they loved it. I went into the second viewing going, you know what? I'm going to eat a huge bin of popcorn. I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to sit here. My friend insisted on paying for it. So I was like, listen, if you pay for the movie and you really want to see it and you need me to be there to help you watch it because you don't know what's going on. You're like, you need to tell me who's who and what's what because I won't have an appreciation for it. And Aristotle Full Throttle, you are dedicated to the Star Wars. You you like all the Star Wars. You're a fan of the wars and stars. Um, you know, there's one moment in the movie where the guy says, "I hope this will end the war," and I said, I leaned over and I said, "The Star War." Um, oh yeah, that was actually very in the very beginning when he says, what could we do to ever repay you?" to the guy with the weird head, and he says, "Win the war," and I was like, "The Star War," because I'm a nerd. What's up, Ismail Siula? Rise of the Sucky. Okay, we'll get to that. I'm going to get to that. Once people start to filter in, we got 5 viewers so far. Let's comment. If you saw Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, what did you think? Let me know in the comments right there in the live chat. I'm going to actually reply to your live chats as I read them live. And that's how this works, ladies and gentlemen. First time I saw the movie, I didn't like it. I didn't like Rise of Skywalker. We had an hour and a half chat, live stream. Tazon Day and Corey AG, you can go check that out on my channel. We talked about it. I was undecided. I said if I'm going to hate it or if I'm going to like it. If there's only 2 measures, if it's I liked it or I didn't like it, I was like, I guess I liked it. It had some stuff in there. There's a lot of problems people have with it. I have a lot of problems with it too. I think it's kind of lazy in some ways. I think it's very fan servicey. But like I said, the first time I saw it, I didn't like it. The second time I saw it, I didn't not like it. What do you think of that? Second time I saw it, I didn't not like it. I think it's because a few things. I knew that my expectations were not high because I thought I hated the movie. I thought I didn't like it. I thought I was never going to watch it again. Second time I saw it, I said, you know what? It's not bad. It's just a bunch of stuff thrown at you. The characters have some witty dialogue, actually, in the movie. I thought it was pretty funny. I love that part where Finn's like to Poe, "You were a spice runner?" Poe's like, "Were you a stormtrooper?" And then Rey's like, "Were you a spice runner?" He's like, "Were you a scavenger? We could do this all day." I thought that was hilarious. I love that part. There's a lot of parts of this movie that I love. There are lots of parts. I thought the light speed skipping was pretty cool. Although I feel like it's a metaphor for the entire movie, how the movie just light speed skips from one scene to the next. I thought Lando was pretty fantastic. Lando was fully Lando. I did not expect him to be that Lando-y because Billy D. Williams is 147 years old and he looks amazing. But he's every interview you see Billy D. Williams, he's like, "I'm just really happy to be a part of this beautiful thing." And you're just like, okay, Billy D. Williams, we need to wake you up. We need to give you some smelling salts. We need to see what's going on there. But in the movie, I don't know, JJ kind of kickstarted him. They gave him a couple cups of coffee, and he was fully Lando. I love the parts where he's like, "Give Leia my love." I mean, hey, it's Lando. A lot of people thought when Jannah said she didn't know where she was from in the end of the movie, if you've seen it, I'm presuming you've seen the movie, Jannah, the other black stormtrooper, says, "Hey, I don't know where I'm from." And then Lando says, "Well, let's find out." And a lot of people read that as creepy Lando, kind of like creeping and trying to be like, "Hey, lady, I'm Lando Calrissian, and I like robots and princesses. And you are no exception." But I actually watched that scene again thinking, like, hey, how is he playing this part? And he's just being innocent. He's just an innocent, fatherly type of like, "Well, let's find out. You want to know where you're from? Let's find out." Yeah, Lando is the coolest dude in the galaxy. And you know what? I'll tell you what. I did eat that entire bin of popcorn, that bucket of popcorn. And that's what The Rise of Skywalker was for me. It was a big bucket of popcorn. If you like popcorn, you will like The Rise of Skywalker. Some of my friends they saw that how angry I was about it because I was like, this movie is not good. I don't like, and I still don't like that Rey is the granddaughter of Palpatine. That's stupid. It's just stupid. People are saying, well, it's damage control for what Ryan Johnson did with episode 8. Listen, there's no such thing as damage control. Good writing, good directing is just that. You don't blame the movie before it as to why your movie isn't that good. The Rise of Skywalker, as fun as it is, it's a bucket of popcorn. It's not as good a movie, and I will fight this tooth and nail, as The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi is a better movie. I will argue that. It is cinematically superior than The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. But people just don't like the story. They don't like what happened. They don't like what happened with the characters. However, if you look at that movie, it makes perfect sense what happens to the characters. It makes perfect sense what happens to the story. It just doesn't fulfill your expectation of what was going to happen. And people are like, oh, well, it's subversion of expectations for the sake of subverting expectations. And it's not. It's just a movie that takes the story somewhere different. And it does so, I think. The movie itself has its own weaknesses. The Canto Bight scene, but the scene still serves a purpose. The whole sequence serves a purpose in the overall story. I lean away from the microphone to cough. That's a little shout out to Tazon Day right there. Yes. Just reading some comments here. K-Ferg, you're mentioning Billy D. Williams and Colt 45. Yeah. If you grew up in the last 20, 30 years, you do remember Billy D. Williams being on TV saying, how about a nice ice cold Colt 45? Because all the ladies love it. Because let me tell you something. Billy D. Williams is the perfect embodiment of ice cold, cool, smooth, and just cool as ice. That guy. There's just no slowing him down. Except, now that he's 147 years old, he's a little bit slower than he used to be. But still cool. He is so cool that I think one day he will hit absolute zero and be frozen. Because that's why he's slowing down. He's just being real cool. He's too cool. We hang on his every word. When I grow up, I want to be Lando Calrissian. I've already got the capes picked out. But I digress. I forgot what I was saying. If you guys can remind me, that would be great. Oh, yeah. The Last Jedi. I think it was a good movie. I think it's a better movie than The Rise of Skywalker. I think The Rise of Skywalker is fun. It's a fun ride. It's a popcorn ride. You can have a good time if you go into it, just not really caring too much about Star Wars. But do not blame the deficiencies that the movie has on the movie before it. People are like, well, it's a trilogy. And that it should... I was having this discussion with Douglas Beamer. We're having this little friendly text debate right now, a little bit of a discussion about the Rise of Skywalker and its faults and why it has faults. And I blame fully the writing and the directing. And some people are saying that, well, it's damage control for The Last Jedi. It's not damage control for The Last Jedi. There's no such thing as damage control for The Last Jedi. If you write something, you create a movie, you're creating a beginning, middle, and end. Of course, it's a big feat to end an entire series of 9 movies, let alone a trilogy. I'm hitting this thing. But yes, ice cold Colt 45 malt liquor. I'm not going to get into the malt liquor thing. About malt liquor was actually allowed and marketed to the inner city, especially in like Los Angeles and stuff, young African Americans was is targeted toward that to help actually subjugate and suppress and oppress a population. So it's good and it's bad. It's a cool image, but fundamentally it created a bad stereotype and a bad situation for folks in inner cities and their perceptions, and also, was actively suppressing people, just like the Just Say No to Drugs program. Thank you, Nancy Reagan. Other than that, hey, who doesn't like an ice cold Colt 45? But The Last Jedi is a good movie. The Rise of Skywalker is not as good a movie, and I will argue this. And while I argue this, please give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to this channel. And remember, I have a Patreon that you can contribute to. If you contribute to the Patreon, if you comment and subscribe to my channel, you can also win. You're eligible to win a PS4 once I reach 10,000 subscribers. So let's get to 10,000 subscribers, and once we do that, someone's gonna win a PS4. I'm gonna get it. I'm just gonna like hang it in front of your face and like shake the box at you until we get to 10,000 subscribers. The Rise of Skywalker, its faults need to be blamed on itself. If you're a good writer, if you're a good director, you take whatever was given to you, and it's not even given to you. You have characters and potentially a story. Well, you're creating the story because the characters that you have are informing it. The characters have goals, the characters have wants, they have needs. And The Last Jedi fulfills all of that, regardless of what you wanted it to do or not. If you sit there and say, well, The Force Awakens said, Rey needs to know who her parents are. Well, who are her parents? Her parents have to be somebody. Well, that's an expectation. What the character wants is to know who her parents were. In The Last Jedi, Rey finds out that her parents were insignificant. It doesn't matter. The whole theme of the movie is it doesn't matter where you come from. It matters where you're going. And I know that The Rise of Skywalker sort of follows up on that, but it really... It's a cop-out to name Palpatine as her grandfather, because then it just completely minimizes the universe into just two family lines. You've got the Skywalkers and the Palpatines, and and Emperor Palpatine created implicitly the birth of Anakin. So Palpatine created Skywalker, and Skywalker. It's just dumb. Just two families and that's it. Come on. I think there's room enough for Broom Boys and maybe some Finns, because it's alluded to that Finn is also accessible. The Force is accessible to him as well. And that's probably why Janna and Finn defected from the Empire, or the First Order. So I'm okay with that notion. If you do remember, The Force Awakens was marketed a lot with Finn holding a lightsaber. So going into that movie, a lot of us thought that Finn was going to be a Jedi. But that has since been, that perception has been turned around. And there's a lot of times that happens with these movies. On mobile, so I had to leave stream and share a link to that Facebook page spoiler talk group for Star Wars. Thank you for that. Sharing the link. So the genealogy, as Will is talking about, the genealogy link, I don't like it. I think it's a cop-out. I think what you do is you double down on the fact that, anything else, even if we do find out who Rey's parents are, make it something new. The Last Jedi... If you look at The Force Awakens and say, well, who is Snoke? We need to know who Snoke is, right? And then you go into The Last Jedi, it turns out it doesn't matter who the hell he is. He gets killed. He's just a big bad guy in charge of the First Order. That's all we knew about the Emperor by the time Empire Strikes Back rolled around. Or the second movie that the Emperor actually appears in, which is the Return of the Jedi, that's the second movie that Emperor Palpatine shows up in. He gets killed. And he basically does the same thing. So that mirrors and reflects the original trilogy. So we see a little snippet of the Emperor in Empire Strikes Back, who actually was played by Rick Baker's wife with chimpanzee eyes originally, but then they recut that sequence to have Ian McDiarmid play the Emperor in the special edition of The Empire Strikes Back. And so he just says a couple things about the son of Skywalker in The Empire Strikes Back, and then in Return of the Jedi, we see his agenda, and he's like, I want to turn you to my side because I need everybody on my side in order to take over the Empire, and he gets killed. So you got the moment where Adam Driver, the guy who broke his back carrying this trilogy, as Kylo Ren, having the moment where he could actually turn good and decides, no, I'm going to take this moment and try to turn Rey evil. Again, expectation. Did not expect that. Very cool. You kill Snoke. So turns out Snoke doesn't matter. So if you want to do that later, fine. But the whole thing about Star Wars is we're thrown into a story in the middle of it. The original Star Wars, it's en medias res. We're just in the story, and we're following right along. Here comes Darth Vader. Here are these two droids. They're in the desert. They're looking for Obi-Wan. Here we are. We're in the middle of the story. We don't need to know all of the stuff that's the backstory of these characters. We're just on board because of what's the action that's happening and what these characters' motivations are. Let's see. Is this Will is saying up to speed with Gina. Jenna said basically all their troop defected. That's true. I feel like Finn's role was diminished due to initial racist backlash before The Force Awakens was released, claiming he was the hero, and going to be a Jedi. And I agree with that. Disney wants 4-quadrant movies. And not unlike the GOP, they won't acknowledge bigots, but make sure not to offend them. Is this Will? I think that's an astute observation because if you remember, Kelly Marie Tran, who plays Rose in The Force Awakens, got a lot of stuff, backlash thrown at her simply because people are like, hey, you're a woman and you're of Asian descent. I don't identify with that, so therefore I don't like it. And that's just me speculating. But I don't think I'm that far off the mark. Or at least people were like, hey, we've never seen that in a Star Wars movie. So what do we do with that? And Disney, being the corporate monster that it is, doesn't like controversy. As much as they have Blackish and on these shows on ABC, which is owned by Disney, I think they're trying to advance the agenda of, hey, people are people. And hopefully one day people will just go, oh, people are all pretty much the same, regardless of features and color of their skin and texture of their hair and whatnot. I think people will start to figure that out. They're like, oh, people are mostly the same and have the same wants and needs and just want to be loved, just like everyone else, just like Kelly Marie Tran. And so they completely diminished her role in Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. I think it was pretty funny because they were like, hey, Rose, you want to, like literally the characters, Finn and Poe and whatnot, go up to Rose. And they're like, hey, Rose, do you want to be in this movie? And Rose is like, nah, I gotta look at maps. And then Finn's like, this is your last chance to be in this movie. We're going to go do a movie now. In this movie, we're going on an adventure. You want to go on the adventure with us, Rose? She's like, I gotta look at maps. And she wasn't too happy about it, I'm pretty sure. Someone had to map the Star Destroyers or whatever, I don't know. So they just really threw away a character that they could have... JJ threw away a character that he could have turned into a really cool part. Although Babu Frick is pretty freaking cool. I like Babu Frick. That's a cool new character. General Pride. What'd you guys think of General Pride? Still hot, by the way. Like this video, by the way. If you're watching this, just like it. Just go ahead and like it. Right now. There's two concurrent viewers and there's only one like, so one of you guys isn't liking it. Let's do it. Um, you're at the grocery store, Will. Why are you at the grocery store? Who needs food at a time like this? Yeah, I think Star Wars set out on the right foot. I think Finn could have been a hero. I think it would have been cool if Finn and Rey were both training as some kind of thing. If it was revealed earlier that Finn was force sensitive, but it's only even alluded to in this movie. Um, there was one moment where Finn just knew Rey died and he was like, "Oh, it's Rey." I don't know. Similarly, I guess, to The Empire Strikes Back when Luke fell from Cloud City into the tubes and underneath into the antenna thing, and Leia was just like, "Oh, Luke, Leia," and then they had a Force connection. I did like that JJ carried over the Force connection. I'm going to say that the thing I really did love about The Rise of Skywalker is the Force connection games that they were playing. The fact that they could actually have a lightsaber duel between two locations. I thought that was a good idea. It was a good way to expand the Force, the dyad that Rey and Kylo Ren are. Um, oh, I guess JJ said that Rose was supposed to have scenes with Leia. I guess she did have a scene with Leia, but it wasn't live Leia. It was footage Leia, which I thought the scenes were pretty cool with her. However, I did notice that the dialogue was a little bit awkward, even though it was kind of funny. But you could tell that everybody was sort of dancing around the lines that they had available of Princess Leia, General Leia. They were like, "Oh, well, we have this clip of her saying, 'Be more optimistic.' So how do we make that a funny punchline?" Or we have this clip of her saying, "Never underestimate a droid. How do we make that funny?" And they did. They incorporated it pretty well. And I know that this movie was ultimately supposed to be the redemption of Kylo Ren by Leia and Memory Han. I think maybe Han or Harrison Ford probably did a favor in order to help the story along with this one by appearing in it and helping that extra little push for Kylo Ren to turn back into Ben Solo. I thought that was great. And I think that the best moment for me, and one of the coolest moments in the whole series, was when Rey is supposed to strike down the Emperor, and the Emperor is supposed to inhabit her body. And then she takes the lightsaber and then hands it off through the Force to Ben, and he pulls the lightsaber out. That was cool. It was like a little magic trick, like the Prestige. It was like the transported man, but it was the transported lightsaber. Overall, I think the movie, The Rise of Skywalker, is a fun time. It's a bucket of popcorn. It's a roller coaster ride. Do not, don't think it's better than the the Last Jedi. They all start with the Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, The Rise of Skywalker. They kind of break from a lot of the tradition in the naming of them. I think a friend of mine pointed out, my friend David pointed out, that it would have been cool at the very end when you've got the Force ghosts appearing of Luke and Leia, and Rey looking over at the Force ghosts of Luke and Leia, and then after she buries the lightsabers, and she sees them, but it would have been cool to mirror the end of Return of the Jedi, where there's a slow fade up of Ben, because he's also a Skywalker. If he faded up, because he faded away, because he redeemed himself in the end of The Rise of Skywalker, if his little blue ghost floated up at the very end as a little reflection of when Anakin appears at the end of The Last Jedi, that actually would have been, that's probably going to be in the JJ special edition if he ever gets his cut, because that's a big controversy right now, whether or not JJ Abrams is going to get his JJ cut of the Star Wars The Star Wars, the rise of the Star Wars. Um, yes, is this will? They seeded that with the water drop in the Last Jedi as a nice point. That is very true. I actually liked that very much. I pointed that out too in my review of The Last Jedi. Is I actually have a video on that where you see when Rey is in a different location and it's raining when she's on Octu, and Kylo Ren is on one of the, I guess, Star Destroyers, and they're having a Force connection. He looks down at his hand after the end of that, and his hand is dripping with water, so that he actually, that does foreshadow the fact that even if they're in different locations, some of the materials around them can actually go to the other spot. And that's one of the really cool ideas that Rian Johnson had, that JJ took to the next level. But there was a lot of stuff that I think JJ, feeling spited, having set up some black boxes, as it were, for the original The Force Awakens, feeling a little bit butthurt about the fact that, you kill Captain Phasma, you kill Snoke, you say Rey's parents don't come from anywhere, and Luke Skywalker just wants to hide away and throw away his lightsaber. People get mad at all that, but The Last Jedi. But I'm like, hey, he's just he's telling his story the way he wants to tell it, not the way you expect it to happen. I invite that. I enjoy that. And I would have to say that when watching The Last Jedi, I actually enjoyed that movie a lot because of all of those things where I was like, oh, I guess it doesn't matter. I guess that doesn't matter. Who cares about this? Because this is what's really important. It doesn't matter where you're from. Nobody's ever really gone. And all sorts of fun stuff. So my second thoughts on The Rise of Skywalker are that not bad. Didn't love it. Don't hate it anymore. I'm glad that I did see it again. I'm glad that I was encouraged to see it again. Will I see it again? I don't know. Maybe when it's on Disney Plus. I actually might go see it in 4DX, which is a really cool experience. I don't know if you've ever tried that, but it's where you could sit in your seat and your seat moves along with whatever the movie's doing. So if you're in an X-Wing or a TIE fighter, your seat is going to be reflecting the action on screen. And they'll bring in wind for when it's windy. They'll flash lights for explosions. I saw during the fight on what's the name of the planet with the salt at the end of The Last Jedi? I forget the name of the planet. But when they were on that planet, they even had little bubbles coming down, little snow bubbles in the theater, floating down during that sequence when it was snowing salt. Yeah, the in retrospect, I feel like The Last Jedi was a redemption arc for Luke. Absolutely. If you look at the character Luke, let's look at Luke, shall we? He is always, we see Luke. He is going to take the trench run. He is willing to sacrifice himself for the sake of the rebellion. He puts himself at risk. In The Empire Strikes Back, he is training. He finds out his friends are in trouble. He is willing to sacrifice his training and himself to go save his friends. You look at Return of the Jedi. He goes to confront his father and says, "No, I will not fight you, Father. I am willing to sacrifice myself to redeem you, Father." The Force Awakens doesn't have much of a character arc. He's found. And then you look at The Last Jedi. What does Luke do? He literally sacrifices himself for the sake of the rebellion. Guys, that's beautiful. It's like his whole entire thing. He took himself away. He spent the entire movie of The Last Jedi questioning and wondering and saying, I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't do this. But he says, you know what my destiny is? My destiny is to sacrifice myself to save my sister, my family, to save my nephew, to save my sister, to save the rebellion. The whole thing. It's just poetry. It's like George Lucas says, it's poetry. It rhymes. Yeah, the start, he Lost Legend tosses the saber, and by the end, the greater legend is sacrificing himself for the sake of the resistance. Absolutely. So and the rise of Skywalker is a result of being redeemed and also having time to arrive to true wisdom of the Force with Yoda, and now he has overcome the shame and tied to Anakin's saber. Yeah, so that was a pretty cool scene. I did like the scene in The Rise of Skywalker where Luke catches the saber and says, "Hey, the Jedi's weapon, it should be revered." Again, a little bit of a going back on the last movie, but it does show that Luke has learned his lesson, and he's like, "Look, I'm not going to just toss the saber away like I did in the last one. I'm not going to let you toss it away. I'm going to catch it. I'm going to give it back. We're going to learn some lessons here." And I have to say, the best part, and like a nice little epilogue, or a nice little moment for Luke's character, was him raising the X-wing out of the water, like he couldn't do or refused to do or said was too hard. Do or do not. There is no try. And Yoda had to be like, in The Empire Strikes Back, y'all remember this. He was trying to lift the X-wing out of the swamp. He couldn't do it. Yoda's like, all right, that's why you fail, bro. Because then Yoda lifts the X-wing out, lands it, and he's like, I don't know how you did that. That's impossible. And Yoda's all, well, you think it's impossible, then it's impossible. He who doubts, I forget how it goes. It's a proverb. It's pretty good. It's he who argues their failure always wins. And so it was nice to see that moment where Luke can actually raise the X-wing out of the water finally, and just concentrate and kind of give a wink to Rey. And he reflects Leia's line, "You have everything you need." I was pretty satisfied with the end of The Rise of Skywalker. I mean, get all the titles confused. The Last Jedi. I was pretty confused. I was pretty happy with the ending of that as being the ending of the whole saga, because it felt like there was hope. As long as there's a little seed of hope, we're okay. And that's kind of how the whole thing started. Yeah, there is no green lightsaber. We uncover Leia's saber that we never even heard about, and now we see, and it's blue. Interesting. Rey's saber is yellow, turns out. Interestingly enough, she turned her staff handle into her lightsaber with a little turny knob thing. Thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, everything you need is here. You've got everything you need. Although people argue that the door of Luke's little hut was made of the X-wing wing, but I guess we can overlook that. Certain things in the Star Wars movies between sequels that don't remain consistent. Like, I think Han gets frozen in carbonite with a vest on, but then when he's thawed out, he doesn't have his vest anymore. Some kind of weird situation. Maybe his vest was made of carbon and it got absorbed. Will's driving. He's going to listen. I'm sipping on coffee, just having a chat with y'all. We got 4 concurrent viewers. If you guys have any questions about The Last Jedi or The Rise of Skywalker or The Force Awakens, the sequel trilogy, let me know. I think that I've turned into the guy who's like, well, we'll always have the originals. Because the originals were unique to the time that they came out. They were unique in that they literally had to create the special effects that they used in those movies, frame by frame. Everything in those movies is technically photographed. Everything now they can just sort of invent in their mind and decide later what they want it to do. There's something to be said about special effects that you have to toil over for years, because it took a year and a half, 2 years to create some of the special effects, the visual effects in the original movies. So you have to really think frame by frame what you're going to want, what you're going to need, because you're not going to want to spend too much time creating a whole sequence that you're going to scrap. Now you could literally just put X-Wings and TIE fighters and just move them around as much as possible and create every camera angle after the fact. So they were unique to their time. They invented all new technologies that we all use today, or what we expect to see in an action movie. And I like that they're continuing Star Wars. However, if there's going to be a space battles, I should hope it would be within the Star Wars universe, because that is what started it. That's what we think of when we see that. And anything else that tries to do that, we just compare it to Star Wars. I heard this week, though, that the next Star Trek movie, the fourth one in the JJ verse, is supposed to be more like the original Star Trek movies. More about the moral tale, more about the moral lesson, and less about the action, which I'm very excited for. I know a lot of people find the original Star Trek boring, but then I find you boring. How about that? Catch me outside. There's a lot of garbage trucks going. A lot of garbage trucks. Garbage trucking. Trucking along. So if you guys have any more questions about the Last Jedi, The Rise of Skywalker, The Force Awakens, what do you guys think about Finn being Force sensitive? I think that it's a good touch. I think they could have. I mean, I suppose we're supposed to realize that what Finn needed to tell Rey the whole movie was that he was Force sensitive. I don't know how much that paid off. I did like the callback when Kylo Ren turns back into Ben Solo, when he's seeing Memory Han and he's talking to Memory Dad, and he says, and I guess my favorite moment of that sequence was the callback to The Empire Strikes Back when Ben Solo says, "Dad?" ? And Han Solo says, "I know." That was a really nice moment. I fully expect the majority of the new Star Wars content come out to be spin-offs that play on Disney Plus the same way we got Clone Wars. I haven't watched the Clone Wars. I swore off the Clone Wars. My friends who love Star Wars tell me that I will love the Clone Wars. I will give them another shot. However, I went into the Clone Wars. I'm very precious about Yoda. I'm very precious about Yoda being a frail, old, appearing person. However, being able to use the Force and its mastery over it, just through time and wisdom, makes him the most powerful. Not using a lightsaber. The guy is old and frail. It's his mind, it's his connection to the Force, it's his knowledge of the Force that makes him the most powerful. Not his lightsaber skills. I think that is so lame. When I saw Yoda pull out a lightsaber, at first I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." And then I thought about it. I was like, that's really dumb. Because why would Yoda need a lightsaber? What does God need with a starship? Why does Yoda need a lightsaber? He doesn't. He's just freaking badass. He literally caught Force lightning in his hand. It's like, yeah, much to learn you have, bro. He doesn't need a lightsaber. So when I went into the Clone Wars, I was watching the first episode, and I was like, if Yoda takes out a lightsaber, I'm turning it off. Within 10 minutes of the first episode, Yoda took out a lightsaber and started bouncing around the screen, and I was like, turning it off. And I had no tolerance. I have zero tolerance for Yoda with a lightsaber. It doesn't make any sense. I will choose to ignore that. I guess give me the cliff notes on the Clone Wars. After The Force Awakens, a lot of explaining had what was not spelled out in the film was individual dictionary, and they're doing that again. The way Abrams is approaching. So I think it's a failure of a movie itself to not include or at least allude to certain things. It shouldn't have to spell out every single thing. We should be able to follow the story and the characters, and everything should feel satisfying and make sense. It shouldn't. You shouldn't rely on the program. Oh, who is that? This is glasses cleaner. I'm using it as a program. Oh, who was that again? Oh, that's Jango Fett. That's Boba Fett's father. That's Palpatine. That's Rey's grandfather. Wait, let's see. I don't know. I don't think you should rely on additional text or an addendum to follow a movie. Here's my thought, and here's my passion about Star Wars. You've got other epic movie franchises. You've got the Marvel movies, all based on 50, 60 years worth of comics. You've got the Lord of the Rings trilogy and The Hobbit, all based on literature, based on actual books that were highly praised over decades and decades. Star Wars is unique in that it is only and only ever has been a movie. Star Wars, the original, was written for the screen. It's a story for the screen. It is a movie that, A New Hope, changed movie history. It was like, if we're going to speak the language of cinema, we've got so many things at our disposal visually. We have so many things at our disposal with our imagination that we can put on a screen. These movies, this story is built for cinema. And it is the most valuable movie franchise, and for good reason, because it is a story in the language of film, specifically. Those other things are adaptations of other works that are long and proven. And this is what is so special about Star Wars to me. This is why the franchise is so special to me, because it is a specific, it is a very highly specific cinematic story. And it will always go down like that. It will always go down through history as that. So every time we use a different novelization or a comic book or a TV version or an animated series, I take all that with a grain of salt, because it is not what the core. It's not at the core of what Star Wars is and was always meant to be, specifically by George Lucas. George Lucas is a filmmaker, was a filmmaker anyway. And he designed these stories for the big screen. And that is how I will approach them. It's kind of purist. It's kind of, call it what you will. I can't think of the word right now. Too much of a cold going on. But I'm pretty strict about that. If you were going to make a movie, I love movies. I studied movies. I actually have a degree in movies. A degree that got me a lot. It got me this microphone and this popper stopper. I don't know. The degree, I can light your cigarette with my degree, basically. But the point is, I love movies, and I've always loved movies, and I've studied movies. And the fact that there is a franchise that is the biggest in all of movie history, up until, I guess, Marvel, that is specifically designed for the movies, I just think that shows how incredibly powerful the medium can be. So, respectfully, if there is a pamphlet or a visual dictionary or all of this other stuff that comes along with how I should enjoy the movie, I'm not necessarily going to be too keen or receptive to that. I want to see the movie do what movies do and what they can do and the potential of what they can do. And that's what the original trilogy does. It says, look, this is what we can do with movies. Let us enjoy that. Lettuce, tomato, and cheese. Okay. Visual Dictionary was home now. I have a big question for you. Okay. Okay, Will, lay it on me. What's the question? What do we got? The antibiotics are kicking in. I need some more airborne. I'm going to answer this question and probably move on because I'm going to do a podcast in about a half an hour for Fan Story. So if you guys are watching, you can switch over to Fan Story podcast. I'm going to have a chat with my friend and co-host Tara. Do you feel the half-complete stories and spin-offs are meant to justify extending the profitability of the intellectual property, which lines up with how Lucasfilm constantly re-released the OG series? Do you feel the half-complete stories and spin-offs are meant to justify extending the profitability? Yes. I think Disney made an investment. I think Disney buying Star Wars was like, wow, this cost us $4.05 billion. How do we make that back and profit as soon as possible? Well, we stick to release dates, regardless of whether or not it can accommodate a story like Episode 9. They should have waited another year, if you ask me. If they didn't scrap Colin Trevorrow, who was originally supposed to direct Episode 9, and he actually wrote Episode 9, if they didn't scrap him, if Carrie Fisher unfortunately didn't pass away, and because she did, they should have taken another year to rework things, rework the story. I think they did a pretty okay job in the time allotted, but it really does feel, The Rise of Skywalker really does feel like a movie that was made in haste. It feels like they just threw everything in there that they thought people were going to like right away without thinking it through too much. Besides merch on VHS, 3 versions of the first trilogy box sets, original, yeah. I think George Lucas stopped being a filmmaker after he created the first Star Wars. After he created Star Wars A New Hope, which wasn't called Star Wars A New Hope, it was just called Star Wars. In 1979, they changed the name to A New Hope. So I'm going to always call it Star Wars because it's called Star Wars. After George Lucas made Star Wars, he was like, I think he was done. I think he's like, here's where the story's going to go. Here's where I think the characters should go. And he handed it over to other people like Lawrence Kasdan and Marquand and all these other talented filmmakers to continue the story that was rich, a very rich cinematic story, that he hired these other people to continue the franchise. And then his mind turned to, how do we get other people to pay us to create special effects like these? Because he created Lucasfilm and LucasArts and Industrial Light and Magic, all of these different. George Lucas since went on to create a toy company, a video game company, a special effects company, and a movie company. And he became a billionaire within years of the release of Star Wars, just off of the merchandising alone. And here's the thing about Star Wars and merchandising. You can't put Coca-Cola in a Star Wars movie, but you can put Star Wars on a Coke can. So everybody wants to license Star Wars. That's the tricky thing about marketing in the Star Wars universe. So that's why every backpack, every lunchbox, every Happy Meal comes with a Star Wars toy, or a sticker or decal or whatever. Because you can't put those items in the movie, and movies are so based on product placement. They're so funded by things. So every time you see a recognizable logo in a movie, particularly I'm thinking about Man of Steel when they had a fight in an IHOP, and I was like, dude, IHOP just paid $20 million toward this movie. So I was watching them fight in an IHOP. It's literally across the screen, IHOP. Or like in Terminator 3 when there was like a Powerade truck that got knocked over, and there's like a whole 10 seconds of the T-X walking toward a car with a just big truck behind it that says Powerade or whatever. I was just like, come on, product placement. It's annoying. But that's another beautiful thing about Star Wars is you cannot put any real merchandise in the movie because it'll take you out of the universe immediately. But then it's a double-edged sword. You got to put Star Wars on everything. And everything wants to license Star Wars because kids want to buy stuff with Star Wars on it. Disney have a similar model, historically released their classics in theaters, spin-offs, direct-to-video, sequels. Yeah, Disney does that. Disney's good at that. Disney knows how to make money off of an intellectual property, whether it's public domain or not. That's what they're really smart at. They go, hey, Hans Christian Andersen has been dead for over the 75 years after someone's death that the copyright extends to. So we can use any of his stories and just dump $100 million into it and make $1 billion over 10 years on that thing. So they take proven properties that are hundreds of years old that nobody owns, they're public domain, and they make billions of dollars off of it. Nobody's smarter than Disney about that. And when they take the biggest properties like Marvel and Star Wars, they're only going to know how to make that into more money. Side question. Which is the best Lucas OG trilogy, Star Wars or Indiana Jones? Good question. We're going to exclude Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, as we should. That's a good question. I'm going to say George Lucas, being amazing as he is, he created Indiana Jones, which became an incredible trilogy, and then Star Wars also, which is also an incredible trilogy. I mean, this is one guy we're talking about. Did both of these, invented both of these out of his head. Both trilogies have a weak link, cinematically speaking. I think we know what we're talking about. Temple of Doom and Return of the Jedi are probably the weaker links. Although, that's debatable. I used to love Return of the Jedi, and a lot of people love Temple of Doom. Temple of Doom is a little bit cringy here and there, though, with the monkey brains and all that. Chilled monkey brains, come on now. A little stereotype much. I'm going to say Star Wars. It's just more enduring. I think that Indiana Jones is an iconic character. There are great moments in those movies. However, there are also very cringy moments that don't really translate to today. Maybe they'll retranslate in the future. Maybe everything will look terrible. I always wonder about that. What are we going to look back on now and cringe at and say, oh, well, that wasn't PC. That was horrible. It's horrible that people drank coffee. How evil of them. Don't they know about the coffee wars? Star Wars was able to avoid the stigma, the producer, product placement. Yeah. Yes, the Empire Strikes Back sheets are pretty classic. Well, guys, thank you for joining me on my second of 52 live streams this year. Hopefully do one a week. My birthday's Monday. I'm very excited. I'm open to suggestions. If you have a suggestion what I should do for my birthday, leave a comment below on this live stream. I might repost this as a video this week, even though the resolution is pretty low. If this is your first time here, subscribe to the channel, like and share these videos, and still only one like, so just like this video. There's 3 of you here. I see you. I see all 3 of you. Like this video. If you guys want to do that, that's great. I appreciate it. I love you. I'm Aristotle, full throttle. Your bro in the know with the fro. Don't forget you can subscribe to my Patreon, contribute $1, $2, $10 a month. It helps keep the show going, and I very much appreciate it. And I'll see you later.